Here are the most common reasons why your septic tank smells and exactly what to do about it. What's going on, guys? Luke here with Luna Environmental. Why am I getting septic smells outside around my septic tank? Well, I went on location with one of our septic technicians to figure out exactly what he would do when a homeowner was having this exact problem. The very first thing that we wanted to look for was what we call surfacing effluent. And surfacing effluent is basically, is there treated wastewater that's somehow coming out of the ground around the aerobic system? Are there high water levels that are pushing it out of the tank? Is there some break in the drip line or some break in a sprinkler head where we're dripping it out? It's somehow getting in the yard and it's not supposed to be, and that's why we smell it. And while there was no surfacing effluent at this particular home, one of the most common things we experience when there is some surfacing effluent causing those bad odors, it's actually because the drain field is getting pretty saturated. Your drain field is just the area of your yard underground where that treated wastewater drips out. And you can imagine if that area gets really saturated with water because maybe we had a big thunderstorm, or maybe there's something wrong with it and it's constantly dripping all day 24/7, or maybe there's something wrong with the emitters and we're dripping out too much at one time, soaking the soil. Obviously, as that soil gets more soaked with the water, it's going to become less absorbent, and that wastewater has to go somewhere, and it's not going to go down, it's going to rise. And so if we get that wastewater coming up because we've soaked a drain field, you are going to start to get some septic smells in your yard. So as a homeowner, if you're smelling that, one of the simplest things you can do is just walk the drain field. See, is there anything wet over here? Do I see pooling water when I shouldn't see pooling water? But if there's no obvious surfacing wastewater, then the second thing we're going to immediately move to is the aerator. If you have an aerobic septic system, you're pumping oxygen into the aeration chamber of that system. And guess what? If your aerator is broken, you're not pumping oxygen into the aeration tank. No oxygen means no microbiome. There's no aerobic bacteria that are starting to eat things and actually treat the wastewater, building that little bacteria ecosystem that treats the wastewater in the first place. So you can imagine, if that were the case, smells will probably start to arise. And that was the exact problem when we got to this homeowner's house. And we could tell it was a problem because as soon as we walked up, we couldn't hear the air compressor. And because we couldn't hear the air compressor, we could tell it wasn't on. And as soon as we opened the aeration chamber, guess what? No moving water, no bubbles whatsoever. So here's exactly why this homeowner was smelling septic smells in their yard. As the wastewater moves from the first tank to the aeration tank, from the aeration tank to the clarifier, and the clarifier to the pump tank, it wasn't being treated properly. So when we open a pump tank, yes, of course, we can smell the wastewater, but it's normally relatively dampened. When we opened this pump tank, we smelled some really nasty septic smells. And guess what? That water inside that pump tank that hit us when we opened the lid was being distributed all over the yard through the sprinkler system. So why was the homeowner smelling nasty septic smells? Because the wastewater wasn't being treated properly and it was being thrown everywhere through sprinklers. Now, what's interesting is our technician noted to me that when we opened the waste tank, the primary tank, that's basically what catches everything from the home. He said, look, this is actually a healthy waste tank. This looks exactly like it should. The problem is downstream in the system. This one looks good, but there's no oxygen coming in downstream. And because of that, we're pumping out untreated water. It's no reason this yard smells terrible. So is septic smell dangerous? The simple answer is no. If you're smelling it in your yard like this, it's not dangerous to your actual health, but is it dangerous for your system? The answer is absolutely yes, because there's something wrong with the aerator. And if we go too long with no aerator, well, you're taking an aerobic system and you're making it anaerobic, and things are going to seriously start to break down. So what are the most common causes of septic tank smells? Well, I just shared our knee-jerk reaction is always going to be to look at the air compressor, because generally speaking, moving water or oxygenated water is not smelly water. So if we're getting smells, we want to look for surfacing effluent, if there is any, and then we want to immediately look at the air compressor, especially if we can't hear it when we're on location. That basically diagnoses the problem for us. And in this case, the homeowner kind of had both problems, right? Surfacing effluent in the form of the water being sprayed through the sprinkler heads, which is actually the way the system is supposed to work. But because the air compressor was out, it was spraying nasty water everywhere, hence why we smelled it. And ultimately, there can be lots of reasons for bad smells around your septic tank in your yard. And so the question is, how do we properly diagnose what is causing the problem? And it's why we want to send a technician out as soon as possible to figure out what's going on. So if you're a homeowner smelling septic smells in your yard, you might be wondering, how do I fix it and when do I need a professional? I asked this question straight up to our technician on location, and his immediate response was, just call a professional. The problem, as you've seen here, is that a septic smell can be an indication of a number of upstream issues, and it's hard to diagnose if you don't know what you're looking at. But he also mentioned, if you're a homeowner experiencing this, one of the easiest things you can do is walk out and see if you can hear your air compressor. If you can't hear that subtle buzz that sounds like this, then it's probably an indication that something's going on with the aerator. But even then, one of our technicians specified that just because you can't hear the aerator does not mean that there's not oxygen necessarily being pushed into the aeration chamber. So the only way to know for sure is to unscrew those riser lids and look inside your aeration chamber. And in our experience, most homeowners don't want to do that. I also asked our same technicians if there's any problems that homeowners should avoid that they see go on when you experience bad septic smells, and their immediate answer was don't add more chlorine to the system. Generally speaking, homeowners tend to think that chlorine is what's responsible for dampening the smell or killing the smell inside of a septic system. So if they can smell it rising, they dump a bunch of tablets into the system. And our technician said, do not do this. It's a common misconception. The point of chlorine is not necessarily to mask the smell, but again, to treat the wastewater as a final treatment before it gets distributed into the actual environment. And while chlorine has a really strong smell, and so it sometimes does overcome the bad smells, that's actually not its purpose, and you can hurt a lot of things by putting too much chlorine in the tank. All right, guys, that answers the question, why does my septic tank smell outside my house? If you got some value here, make sure to hit the share button and share this with a friend who's also on septic and maybe experienced some bad smells and is looking for some easy ways to diagnose what might be going on, or even a professional to get in touch with, because our goal here is to make septic simple. And from Luke here at Luna Environmental, I'll see you in the next video.